In this video, we're going to install the custom transmission tunnel into the car, and we're going to coat it with epoxy primer. Stay tuned. Hey guys, welcome to the channel. My name is Dan and you're watching Resto Car, your source for DIY content to help you finish those builds. And hey, if you're a weekend warrior restoring cars at home, consider subscribing because that's what we do here on Resto Car. All right guys, before we can tack in the transmission tunnel and fit it up and everything, we got to go ahead and prep this area here. So we're going to go ahead and clean it up, and I have to weld up some areas that I cut through accidentally whenever I did this the first time with the other piece on it. So I'm going to go ahead and weld these up, smooth them out, and then hit this with some weld through primer. I'm going to spray some Eastwood's internal frame coating in here, go down that way and this way as well. We got everything welded in, you know, everywhere I cut accidentally. So that's all good, it's all ground down. Can't even tell anymore. But now I got to take care of this hole here. I just wanted to stop and show you guys another tip. You know, this is just a piece of copper pipe that I hammered down on one end. And what that's going to do is provide me with a nice backing plate to fill in that hole right there. All right, quick update. We got this all cleaned up. We got this edge prep for welding as well. So that all turned out really good. So I'm going to go ahead and spray in some Eastwood internal frame coating into there, and we're going to tape this off so we don't get any on here, and then we'll come back and spray this with weld through primer. All right, so I just wanted to show you guys the internal frame coating real quick. It's kind of how this works. So Eastwood makes this. I've used it on a lot of the hard to reach places. So, but basically you can kind of see in the picture there, it just puts this green film over everything and kind of stops rust and all that. So, and then this attachment here basically does a 360-degree spray. So when you like shove it in a frame rail or a rocker panel or something like that, or like I'm going to go to here in this brace, and I push it down all the way and then pull back, I should get a nice coverage on all four sides. All right guys, so what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go ahead and spray this with rust encapsulator. Just another Eastwood product. If you haven't figured out yet, I love my Eastwood products. I think they stick very well. Like this internal frame coating just dries quick, sticks great, and then this rust encapsulator, I've put it on things and tried to sand it off and it sticks pretty good. This epoxy in here, I mean, I sprayed this and I've been working in here like crazy. It's scratched up, but it's not through at all. It's just the paint that's got scratches in it like you can see here. But nothing. This primer is holding up great, and then like removing it from these edges and everything takes a while. So anyways, back to what we're doing here. But I'm gonna go ahead and spray this with the rust encapsulator product. I mean, generally I'd like to, you know, epoxy it, but it's such a small area that I'm not gonna mix up epoxy for that. So I'm gonna rust encapsulate it, and then what I do is I come back later where my spot welds are gonna be, and I, you know, basically sand out a little square and spray it with weld through primer. Let's go ahead and spray the rust encapsulator. All right guys, so we got the rust encapsulator on there. We're gonna go ahead and let that dry, and then whenever this dries, we will put some holes into the transmission tunnel, and then come back and figure out where the holes are gonna go for our plug welds, and then we'll grind just a little bit of this rust encapsulator out in those areas and spray some weld through primer. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and create holes for some plug welds. We're gonna do that in the rear of the tunnel because we're gonna plug weld it to the flange that goes across the floorboards underneath, and then we're also going to do it to the front of the tunnel because it's going to overlap the piece of tunnel that's already in there. So I'm just going to go ahead and use a drill bit to do that, keep it simple, and then we'll just clean up any kind of metal left from the drill bit on the other side of the panel. So let's go ahead and get started. All right guys, so got the flanges taped off. I'm gonna go ahead and spray this flange with rust encapsulator. I'm also gonna go ahead and spray these flanges with rust encapsulator as well. And then we'll come back and grind off where the plug welds are gonna be and spray them with weld through primer. All right guys, we got the rust encapsulator on there, which is good. Here's a look at the tunnel that's in the car. Alright guys, so we got the flanges painted up on both sides. We'll come back and spray that with some weld through primer soon enough. And for now, what I'm going to do is just go ahead and kind of trim these corners off so that I can get a nice fit here. And then the same thing here, I'm going to trim back here. This is just where the panels kind of overlap. That'll allow me to tuck this piece behind the floor pan, and then I can come across with my cutoff wheel and make a nice cut that gives me a nice gap for that. So I'm going to do that on both sides. Your other options would be to put it here and then come in from behind. However, the transmission's there, and again, I don't want to remove it yet. All right, guys, so we got this up here kind of marked, so we're going to just basically cut off this piece. I couldn't mark these yet because I can't get it to fit nice, because I need to cut out the spot for the shifter because it's touching right here. So you can see I took a scribe and just marked a line here. Hopefully you can see that. We're going to just rough cut it for now. We'll clean it up later, just so I can push this piece down so I can get this stuff spot welded to the brace there. Right now I can't because the edge of the shifter housing is hitting right here. And then over here as well, you can see I just went under the car and scribed that. Again, we're only going to take a section off here, just enough to get this flange to line up flush with the other one. And the idea again is to be able to tuck this behind the floor pan. However, we got to take some off of these sides too, but we got to get this cut out first before we can do that. So let's go ahead and get this stuff cut out, and then we'll fit it back in and see where we're at. We got this piece cut out, gave me some room here, and then basically what I did here is I went down and drilled small holes and drove self-tapping sheet metal screws through this transmission tunnel and then the brace underneath. If it was just sheet metal to sheet metal, I really wouldn't have had to pre-drill those, but just makes it a little easier. This gave me a run for my money right here. The radius wasn't as tight as it needed to be, so it didn't turn out as good as I'd hoped, but it's going to be good in the end. So we'll get it all cleaned up once we get it plug welded to the brace underneath the floor and everything, and then we'll come through here and just use a flat screwdriver to kind of pry these up and down as needed. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and scribe on the back side of this and see if I can get this piece cut off on both sides. All right, guys, so we got this corner cut out, you can see there, and then what I did is I tucked that all behind the floorboard, and now I'll be able to come across with the cutoff wheel and make a nice smooth cut there. All right, guys, so I'm going to go ahead and cut the hole off for the shifter. So basically what I did is I just took this piece of poster board and put my shifter on top of it, traced out the bolt holes. And now what I'm going to do, I just put these in. Basically, I'm going to go ahead and trace around this, and then I'm going to trace around again and leave myself like an extra 1/4 inch all the way around. All right, guys, it's looking pretty good. Got lots of room around the shifter now. So that's looking really good. I got more plans for this yet, for the shifter boot and all that. So it's not finished yet, but it's good enough that we can weld all this in. So I'm going to go ahead and basically start tacking this in. Now what I did is I went around and I used a pick and basically traced around all these holes I left for plug welds. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this off and basically grind around each one of these, and then I'm going to go ahead and spray some weld through primer there. I'm going to do that on both sides, on the transmission tunnel and on the flanges that it's going to be welded to. So go ahead and do that. We'll let that dry, and then we can start tacking this in. All right, guys, we got weld through primer on everything, so we are good to go. The next time this goes in, we're tacking it in for good. Here's a look at the tunnel. Now, a lot of times I'll just make like a square in a piece of cardboard or something and just spray around it, but it just saves you a little bit of material and keeps things cleaner. But with these being as close as they are and everything, I just decided to spray the whole thing. But there's a good coat of rust encapsulator and stuff underneath there that'll be more than good enough to keep this stuff in good shape. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and let this dry, and then we'll be ready to tack the next piece in. All right guys, it's going in for the last time. I'm gonna go ahead and fasten it back in place, and then we're gonna go ahead and plug weld it, and then tack the sides. So hopefully this thing doesn't have to come back out. A lot of work went into it, and I'm excited to get it done. So let's get to it. All right, so quick check-in. Basically got the bottom side here welded up, got up the firewall or the toe board here welded up, and we got around the old tunnel welded up, and we got this side all the way down welded up, and then we're gonna have to work out some magic here. Basically it dips in right here, so we're gonna have to kind of work that in. It's gonna be just a lot of prying and pulling here and tacking along the way to get that to fit good. And we may have to heat this area up right here to kind of get this bend in here, so we'll see which way we go with that, but we'll get it. All right, so this area over here, it's kind of goofed up on this side, so what I should have done was welded the tunnel to this piece first and then tap these down to do the plug welds. Since I plug welded this first, there's some pieces a little lower right here, and it's just hard to pull this up because when I'm trying to pry on this to pull this up, this piece is going down, so I might have to get the stud gun out and use a slide hammer and pull some of these out. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of show you guys before I finish this off. You know, I'm just doing little sections at a time and then skipping a section in between and then welding a section, skip a section, weld a section, and then just keep doing that, and then finally, you know, you get it all kind of welded in. I don't worry too much about warpage on this stuff here because nobody's ever going to see it. So, you know, I might do little larger sections here than I would if I were on a quarter panel, for example. What I'm going to do now is pick one of these sections to work on. I'm thinking I'll do this one. Seems like it might be the easier one right now. All right guys, quick look over here. So we got this pulled in up to where we could, and all I did was just take a flat screwdriver and kind of pry down until it lined up, and tacked it while I held the screwdriver there. And then basically I used those Harbor Freight welding butt weld clamps and pulled it together and got that tacked in. So now we got to tackle this piece here. So what I'm going to do is go under the car and heat this backside up with a propane torch. Basically I'm going to use MAP gas. We're going to heat it up and we're going to try to push this out and see if we can get close to here. If we get pretty close, we can always come on this side and heat this side up and push it in that way as well. All right guys, that turned out pretty good. So we went down behind, we heated it up with the MAP gas, and then just hit it with a body hammer. And then for this piece here, I just used an old punch basically with a regular hammer and just kind of grabbed the end of this and kind of pushed up, you know, hit up with it. So that turned out pretty good. The rest of this here, I'm going to go ahead and just kind of tack, and then use the flat-headed screwdriver wherever I need to pull stuff together. So let's go ahead and get this welded up, and then we'll jump over to there. All right, well that turned out pretty good. Once we grind that down, it'll just look like it's always been there. And then we're on to this piece here. So we're gonna go ahead and get this welded up, and then once we have everything welded, we'll go ahead and grind everything down. All right guys, so the stud gun was a failure. I don't know what it is with that Harbor Freight gun. I've never tried anything else, but I can never get those to stick. I don't know what's going on with that, but basically what I'm gonna do is basically knock this side down, and then we'll weld it directly to this. If we have a little raised spot, that's okay. If we have a low spot, we'll hit it with some fiberglass filler, and we'll smooth all this out with some filler in the end. So I'm not too worried about it. It would have been nice, you know, like I said, to weld this to this first and then tap those down so that we could have spot welded them then and have a nice transition here. We'll still have a nice transition. It's just a little more work, that's all. I'm gonna get back to it. All I'm doing is using a flathead screwdriver and prying in here like this, kind of prying up. And what that does is it lifts up on this and pushes down on this. And again, we'll get a nice seam across here, and we'll clean it up with fiberglass filler in the end. All right, so we got this piece welded in. It turned out all right. A little fiberglass filler. Once we get the welds ground down, we'll make it look pretty good. Here's a look at the other side. So everything's welded in. I'm going to go ahead and just start grinding down the welds. Now I'm not going to record any of that because I have plenty of videos that show that kind of stuff, and honestly it gets boring after a while. So just cut off wheels, flap discs, and sanding discs basically to grind down the welds. All right, there she is, looking good. Turned out awesome. Even this area back here turned out better than I thought it was going to do. So you can see, got everything ground down. I got the surface rust and everything off of it too because I'm going to throw a coat of epoxy primer on it. But before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and hit all these welds with fiberglass filler. A, to smooth it out, and B, to fill in any pinholes that might be there. Let's go take a look at the other side. All right, here's this side. The driver's side, you can see how this turned out. It turned out pretty good. All the way up and around. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and hit everything with some fiberglass filler and throw a coat of epoxy on it. Alrighty guys, we got the filler in place. I'm not going for perfection here, just smoothing out as best we can and getting the welds covered up. So I hit it with fiberglass filler first and then regular filler after that, just to smooth out some of the imperfections in the fiberglass filler. It's a little bit of a difficult place to apply filler, but we got it. Here's a look at the other side. Turned out pretty good, so we're going to go ahead and put the epoxy primer on here. All right guys, got it epoxy primed. One thing's for sure, the new epoxy primer, the fresh stuff that I got, sprayed a lot better than the stuff that we sprayed on the floor because the activator was old. I'm pretty convinced that was the issue. This stuff sprayed a lot nicer. So definitely keep track of how long you've had your products and, you know, when you've opened them and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, turned out really good. Very happy with it. All we have to do is make the plate for that, for the shifter boot, but I think I'm gonna order a shifter boot first and kind of see how that goes, or I might try to fit my factory console in here and see what that looks like. Here's a look at the other side. Turned out really good. Very happy with that compared to what I had in here. All right guys, that completes the custom transmission tunnel series for now. In a future video, we'll deal with the shift boot ring and all that kind of stuff. But for now, I'm hoping to start moving towards getting the car flipped up on its side and getting the underside of the car stripped and painted and all that good stuff. So if that's interesting to you, consider subscribing. And if you do subscribe, hit that notification bell so that you get alerts whenever we post new videos. We'll see you in the next one.